When it comes to Kyler Murray, I feel like he's more talented than he is good and productive. Welcome back to the Kev BK Beloved Show. Cue the incredibly loud and unnecessary intro sound effects here. I'm your host, Kev BK Beloved, of course, covering sports, among other things. Back to sports today with an NFC West preview. Solo dolo today. No guests, gotta settle for little old me. There's a couple reasons for that. Well, one big one, thank you Brandon Ayuk, we'll get to him later. But the NFC West in general is a very interesting division. There's a world where a lot of people think there could be 4 playoff teams coming from this division. I think the over-under is more like 2.5, and I'm gonna hit the under. We'll get to why in 1 second. But first, hey, you aren't subscribed? You ain't like, follow, comment? What are you doing? Hit the notification button, hit subscribe, get with the program, so everything can be fun, everything can be copacetic. Why you gotta be so difficult? All right, back to the episode. We will be starting with the Arizona Cardinals, and to summarize their 2023 season, they were the crown jewel winner of the they don't suck nearly as much as we thought they would trophy. Now, for a team that went 4-13 and had the number 4 overall pick, I know that sounds crazy, but hear me out. Last year, before the season started, we knew Kyler Murray wasn't going to play until Thanksgiving-ish. And since he doesn't have the strongest record of work ethic, there were people who thought he wasn't going to play at all. But surprise, surprise, he came back week 10, and of their 4 wins, he got 3 of them. The other one was off the Cowboys in one of the funniest overreaction games of the season. Shout out my man Josh Dobbs. And the way people are evaluating the team this year is really interesting because I feel like when a narrative gets repeated often enough, eventually it becomes mainstay and it eventually becomes fact. This is everyone's go-to, I don't know, this could be the sleeper team of the year. And quite frankly, I just don't see it. Oh, my bad, y'all, I'm speeding. I forgot the structure of my own previews. So to answer the initial question of what's more likely, is this team more likely to make the playoffs or get the number 1 overall pick? They are definitely a number 1 overall pick contention. And I would worry about blowback from Cardinals fans, but there are no Cardinals fans. Come on now. And a lot of that is contingent on how big of a season will Kyler Murray have. Now, if you're new to this channel, you should know I'm president of the Black Quarterback Fan Club. Did a whole series back in February honoring black quarterbacks. Love them all, right? But when it comes to Kyler Murray, I feel like he's more talented than he is good and productive. And sometimes we conflate the two. The absolute best of Kyler Murray looks unstoppable, untackleable, can throw the ball over the moon. The worst of Kyler Murray looks like an out-of-control rugrat that can't make decisions and can't throw the ball beyond 10 yards. And then now you got to factor in health because with smaller quarterbacks, that's an issue for everyone not named Drew Brees. Well, once he got to the Saints. He's only played 19 games in the past 2 seasons. Kyler Murray's career record is 28, 36, and 1. So again, more talented than good. However, there are things that can counteract that so it's not 1,000% on Kyler Murray this year in terms of the Cardinals offense. Number 1, that run game last year, especially when Kyler came back, was outstanding. And you would think that's because Kyler Murray ran the ball all over the lap, but that's not really the case. Remember, he's coming off of a torn ACL. There's only but so much you could do when you have 1.5 legs. In the 8 games he played, we're still talking about 244 rushing yards total. But if you look at the run game as a whole, thankfully because of advanced analytics, thank you Warren Sharp, we have it deduced down to just running back carries. The Cardinals were 2nd in yards per carry, 2nd in success rate, 2nd in explosive run rate, 3rd in EPA per rush, and 31% of their rush attempts were first downs, 3rd in the league. So just the threat of Kyler Murray being on the field and his ability to run the ball is plenty to get the job done in terms of getting this run offense going. So it's not just, hey, Kyler, go out there and throw for 300 yards a game. That's not really in his bag anyways, but thankfully he doesn't have to. But if he does want to throw the ball for 300 yards a game, it helps to have the best wide receiver prospect in a decade on your team. Well, outside of Jamar Chase, but that's an argument for another day that we'll revisit after the season. I think Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to immediately be excellent the moment he walks onto the field. The Cardinals' first regular season game is against the Buffalo Bills, whose starting corners are Rasul Douglas and Christian Banford. Marvin Harrison is going to eat them alive. Mark my words. People forgot because he didn't go through the whole draft process and all that unnecessary bullshit just to end up getting drafted to the spot he was always going to anyways. They forgot He's a generational receiver for a second. And despite everything I just said about Kyler Murray, he's not Kyle McCord. And he's not in as crowded of a receiving room as he was in when CJ Stroud was still at Ohio State. So he's going to get all the targets in the world, especially since last year when it came to targeting wide receivers. The Cardinals, not great. When targeting wide receivers, the Cardinals were 29th in EPA per attempt, 30th in success rate, 30th in yards per attempt, and 30th in completion percentage. Just awful on all fronts. There's a bunch more numbers I can go to on that one, but we'll leave it at that. Comment that with the fact that I think Trey McBride and always butcher this guy's name, Greg Dortch, are more than serviceable tight ends. There's more to play with on this offense than Kyler and that offense have had before since the DeAndre Hopkins days. So is there signs of life? Yes, but we got to get to the other side of the ball. And this is why I think narrative takes over fact. And it's an overcorrection, right? Because a lot of us, let's be honest, fans of media, like, we were very mean to Jonathan Gannon when that preseason video came out and he was like, pew, pew, everyone, are you ready to get on the bus? You could be a bus driver. Y'all know that weird video that Jonathan Gannon put out. So when we saw that the Cardinals weren't god awful and weren't competitive in all these games, we were like, oh, I guess Jonathan Gannon can coach. And the fact that the Eagles defense completely fell apart without him, we were like, oh, okay, I guess he's a decent coach. Instead of judging him on how bad the Eagles were without him, we should probably look at how bad the Cardinals were with him. More so, EPA per pass allowed, they were 32nd, dead last, bottom of the league. And in EPA per rush, they were 31st. This was an objectively bad defense. They allowed more than 6 yards a play last year. So don't worry, you don't really have to overcorrect here. We were right the first time. Jonathan Gannon has not proven to be that great of a coach. However, that defense was a bunch of just guys. They tried to improve it, bringing in a Sean Murphy-Bunting at corner, drafting Darius Robinson, who should have probably went higher, but story for another day. Drafting Max Melton. They're trying, but a couple of those guys are still pretty far away from being a deeply impactful pieces on this team. You know what I'm saying? Their projected win total is 6.5. And I think even if they hit a slight under at 6, all the hype that the analysts are putting on them aside, that should be a win for them because this team still isn't all that talented, man. Like, we got to be a little more realistic about these things. This team is fine. The main thing you should hope for is Kyler Murray plays 17 games and Marvin Harrison Jr. at least makes it interesting for Rookie of the Year, even though Caleb Williams pretty much has to spontaneously combust before the season is over to lose it, but we'll see. I have hope. Closing it out for the Cardinals, their 2025 February 10th, day after the Super Bowl headline would be Short King Tall Contract. Cardinals next step. Okay, for real this time. Short King Tall Contract. Cardinals next step now that Kyler Murray's extension kicks in.